Hi. Today we're going to talk about a structure of argument called a syllogism. Syllogisms are structures wherein you've got one premise and another premise and a conclusion. And in a valid syllogism, the conclusion follows logically and necessarily from the premises. Looking at syllogisms can be a really useful way of analyzing an argument, breaking it apart, analyzing the parts of it, and identifying the strengths and weaknesses of the various elements of the argument. So let's get started. So syllogism, I think, is really crucial at identifying the structure of an argument. And it consists of two premises. The first premise is called a major premise. The major premise is usually a universal or general statement. It's the broad statement. All humans are mortal, for example. It also consists of a second premise called the minor premise, which is more specific and particular. Socrates is a human, is more specific and individual than all humans are mortal. But if you think about it, if you say all humans are mortal and Socrates is a human, it follows absolutely necessarily that Socrates is mortal. You can't escape it. So the idea of a syllogism is if the major premise is true and if the minor premise is true, if it's a valid syllogism, the conclusion follows necessarily. Think about it this way. All humans are mortal. I've got my big circle, means everything that's mortal, okay? Everything that's gonna die. And in part of that circle is all humans. So these are all humans. They fit in the category of mortals. And then I say Socrates is human. He fits in that. And so therefore, he fits in that category of what's mortal. He fits in that blue category because he fits in the black, and everything in the black circle is in the blue circle. So Socrates is mortal. It follows necessarily. Now, just because something is valid does not mean it's true. Don't make that confusing point. Let's try to move this out of the way. There we go. So if I have a major premise, all zombies can be killed with a stake through the heart. So this is everything. And this blue circle is everything that can be killed with a stake through the heart. Zombies are this circle. These are the zombies, all right? And then I say Simon is a zombie. He fits in that category there. So that's a valid syllogism if it says that therefore Simon can be killed through a stake with the heart. Yes, that follows absolutely logically. If the first premise is true and if the second one's true, that follows necessarily. Now, it might be false, by the way. Zombies, in fact, cannot be killed with a stake through the heart, okay? Vampires can. Zombies, you got to chop the head off, clearly, right? And Simon isn't a zombie. Simon is a werewolf. So even though both premises are false, doesn't matter. It's a valid syllogism because it follows absolutely logically. Now, in the same way, something could be true, but not valid logically. So most Americans watch a lot of TV. Now notice how I've worded that, it's most. So in this broad circle, it means everything that likes to watch TV. My cats, my dogs, humans, but Americans. But notice it's not all Americans, it's only most Americans. So these are Americans right here. They fit in the category partially of people who like to watch TV. All right, now if I say Phil is an American, now where am I gonna put Phil? Am I gonna put Phil here in the white part of the Americans who don't like to watch TV, or the Americans here in the blue who do like to watch TV? So if I conclude, therefore Phil watches a lot of TV, it's not a valid syllogism. It doesn't follow absolutely. Now it could be true. It's true, most Americans watch a lot of TV. It's true, my friend Phil is an American. And it's also true, Phil watches a lot of TV. So all of those are true statements, but it's not a valid syllogism because it doesn't follow necessarily from the premises. Let's do a little practice. All right, so as you look at these, think about them. All basketball players are tall. Gordy plays basketball, therefore Gordy is tall. Gordy fits in the category of tall things, tall people. And because he is a basketball player, and all basketball players fit in this category. Again, not necessarily true, but it's valid. So we're going to call that a valid syllogism. Everyone who takes English 1D must pass English 1A. Sandra passed English 1A. Therefore, Sandra's taking English 1D. Stop the video and think about this for a minute. Does it follow necessarily? In fact, this is an invalid syllogism. Everyone who takes English 1D must pass 1A. So these are the people in 1D, and all of them passed 1A. 1A is this blue circle here. Sandra passed English 1A. She fits in the blue circle, but we don't know if she fits in the category here. In other words, should I put Sandra here, the people who passed 1A but don't take 1D? Do I put her in here, the people who are taking 1D? We don't know, given the two premises. So this conclusion does not follow necessarily. All bad students fail their classes. Larry is a bad student, therefore Larry fails his classes. Stop and think about that one, and then continue the tape to the video to see the answer. That's valid. All bad students fail their classes. These are the bad students right here. They all fail the classes. Larry fits in that category of bad students, and therefore Larry fails his classes. All bad students fail their classes. Larry is failing his classes, therefore Larry is a bad student. So think about that for a minute. It's a little different from our previous one. This is invalid. These are all the people who fail the classes. These are the bad students. Larry is failing his class. Well, is he failing because he's a bad student, or is he failing for other reasons? People fail for many different reasons, and we don't know which category Larry fits in. We can use conditional claims also. Conditional are if claims. If the stock market improves, you'll get rich. The stock market won't improve for a long time, therefore you won't get rich for a long time. Does this follow logically? This is invalid. You can get rich other ways. This is just saying that if the stock market improves, you will get rich, but there could be other ways of getting rich as well. If I said something like this, the stock market will improve soon, then it follows you'll get rich soon, but the negative doesn't follow. Precise language really matters. Check out this syllogism. If you work hard at it, you can improve your writing. Maria works hard at her writing, therefore she will improve her writing. What do you think about that? Well, this is invalid. And the reason is, in the premise, I put can, but in the conclusion, I put will. And that's a big difference. And that means the conclusion, as stated, does not follow from those premises. If your car runs out of gas, it won't run. Your car won't run, therefore you must be out of gas. Invalid. Of course, there could be other reasons your car doesn't run. We also can use value judgments, should statements, or ought, or good or bad kind of statements. We should help people in dire need. Asylum seekers are in dire need. Therefore, we should help asylum seekers. That's valid, completely valid. It follows absolutely logically. A lot of our conflicting arguments stem from differences in the major premise. For example, we should look out for ourselves first. If we help asylum seekers, we're not looking out for ourselves first. Therefore, we should not help asylum seekers. This also is valid. It's just starting from a different premise. Try the exercise on guessing the missing element. All cats are mammals. My pet Rusty is a cat. Therefore, Rusty is a mammal, of course. If anyone commits murder, he or she deserves to go to jail. Carlito committed murder. Therefore, he deserves to go to jail. The conclusion is pretty easy to get, but if you're missing a premise, it's a little trickier. If you smoke, you have a good chance of getting cancer. Therefore, my cousin Mario has a good chance of getting cancer. Well, I should be able to pick that premise out. Mario smokes. All electronic equipment uses valuable natural resources. Therefore, my cell phone uses valuable natural resources. What's the missing premise? My cell phone is a kind of electronic equipment. The major premise, if it's missing, is a little harder to figure out for a lot of students. Let's give it a try. That newspaper publishes lies. Therefore, that newspaper should be shut down. Think about the missing premise, the general statement or absolute statement that forces us to make that conclusion. Newspapers that lie should be shut down. This is crucial, and in a lot of arguments, the major premise is left unstated. We'll talk about this in our next lesson. But for now, it's really important that you're able to pick out a missing major premise and see how it's necessary. If that premise has to be true. If we think that newspapers that lie should not be shut down, there should be freedom of the press, even freedom to lie, then that conclusion could not follow from the premise that that newspaper publishes lies. Try another. Smoking in restaurants is unpleasant for non-smokers. Therefore, smoking in restaurants should be banned. We need some sort of absolute statement about what should happen in order to reach that conclusion. Anything that is unpleasant for non-smokers or other patrons should be banned. Try another. Monsanto Corporation makes large campaign contributions. Monsanto Corporation bribes politicians. What's the missing premise? Large campaign contributions are bribes. Try another. Mary studied hard, therefore she'll pass the test. Anyone who studies hard will pass the test. So syllogisms are a really important framework for an argument. And it is going to be really helpful as you progress in your critical thinking, reading, and writing to learn how to identify the premise and the conclusion of an argument, and especially to identify the hidden premise. We'll talk about that in a lot more detail when we look at enthememes.